fed Durvasa Muni and his thousands of disciples. It was the pot that had, she got a blessing, wasn't it? Right, and then what was it? Krishna expanded himself and it never went empty, the pot, is that right? Oh. That's the one. That's right. So this book is like that. Okay, Srila Prabhupada had already expressed his surrender in the prayer he had given his disciples to offer on his behalf, my dear Lord Krishna, if you desire, please cure Srila Prabhupada. By the phrase, if you desire, he was reminding his followers of the supreme prerogative of Krishna and was asking them to abide by it. Although he was also giving them an acceptable way to petition Krishna. In a similar case, in 1967, he had given his disciples another prayer. My master has not finished his work. He had said then that Krishna had responded to this prayer, granting the wishes of the devotees. Srila Prabhupada himself was responding to the devotee's prayer, and Krishna had given him the choice. But as a surrendered soul, Srila Prabhupada waited for further developments, ever sensitive to Krishna's desire. As Prabhupada had said when invited by Kirtananda to come to his palace in New Vrindavan, let us see which palace I am going to. As a loving tension can sometimes exist between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee, so now a similar tension existed between Srila Prabhupada and his followers. Prior to his disciples' desperate petition at his bedside, Srila Prabhupada had seen his duty as instructing his disciples in how to die. Part of his mission was to set the perfect example in this most important lesson, how to pass life's ultimate test. But now his disciples were asking him to postpone the lesson in dying and stay with them indefinitely in the preaching field. And Prabhupada had agreed, showing that he had the ability to live if he chose, but sooner or later he would have to return to the lesson of how a person should face the end of life. One special feature of Srila Prabhupada's activities in his relating intimately to the human condition while at the same time remaining always aloof and transcendental. As a pure devotee, he was not subjected to the law of karma, which awards reactions for pious and sinful deeds. He was not born by the force of karma, nor would he die by the force of karma. Stated by Srila Rupa Goswami, one whose body, mind, and words are fully engaged in devotional service to Lord Krishna is a liberated soul, even while living in this world. People often misunderstand the movements of a pure devotee within material world, just as one on seeing clouds blowing past the moon may think the moon itself is moving. The Shastra therefore warns us never to see the Guru as an ordinary man subject to karma. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 3, entitled Hiranyakashipu's Plan to Become Immortal. It starts at text 25, and then it's text 26 and 27. So I'll do the first verse. Utaya pranjali prava ikshamano drisha vibhum harshashru pulako bedo giragad gadaya grinat. Then getting up from the ground and seeing Lord Brahma before him, the head of the Daityas was overwhelmed by jubilation. With tears in his eyes, his whole body was shivering. With tears in his eyes, his whole body shivering, he began praying in a humble mood with folded hands and a faltering voice to satisfy Lord Brahma. Okay, we'll do 26 and 27 together. Shri Hiranyakashipu Vacha Kalpante Kalashristena Yondena tamasavritam yondena tamasavritam abhivyanag jagad idam abhivyanag jagadidam swayanjoti swarochisa swayanjoti swarochisha atmana trivarita chedam atmana trivrita chedam srijati avati lumpati srijati avati lumpati raja sattva tamo damne raja sattva tamo damne paraya mahate namaha paraya mahate namaha Shri Hiranyakashipu vacha kalpante kalashustena yondena tamasavritam abhivyanag jagad idam swayanjoti swarochisha atmana trivrita chedam srijatyavati lumpati rajasadvatamo damne paraya mahate nama Shri Hiranyakashipu vacha kalpante kalashustena yondena tamasavritam abhivyanag jagadidam swayanjoti swarochisha atmana trivrita chedam srijatyavati lumpati rajasadvatamo damne paraya mahate nama. Please chant.
Atmana Srivita Chedam Srijatyavati Mantri Rajasattva Tamono Damne Hariyaya Te Namaha Shri Hiranyakashipu vacha Kalpante Kalashustena Yondena Tamasavritam Abhivyanag jagaditam Swayanjoti swarochisha atmana trivrita chedam
Mataji's. Shri Hiranyakashipu vacha Hiranyakashipu said, Kalpa ante, at the end of every day of Brahma, or Lord Brahma, Kalashustena, created by the time factor, Ya, he who, Andena, by dense darkness, Tamasa, by ignorance, Havritam, covered, Abhivyanak, manifested. Jagat, cosmic manifestation. Idam, this Swam Jyoti, self-effulgent. Swaroti Shah, by his bodily rays. Atmana, by himself. Trivrita, conducted by the three modes of material nature. Cha, also. Idam, the material world. Srujati, creates. Avati, maintains. Lumpati, annihilates. Raja, of the mode of passion. Sattva, the mode of goodness. Tama, and the mode of ignorance. Damne, unto the Supreme Lord. Paraya, unto the Supreme. Mahate, unto the Great. Nama, my respectful obeisances. Translation: Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord within this universe. At the end of each day of his life, the universe is fully covered with dense darkness by the influence of time, and then again, during his next day, that self-effulgent Lord, by his own effulgence, manifests, maintains, and destroys the entire cosmic manifestation through the material energy which is invested by the three modes of material nature. He, Lord Brahma, is the shelter of those modes of nature, Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. Please repeat. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord within this universe. At the end of each day of his life, the universe is fully covered with dense darkness. By the influence of time, and then again during his next day, that self-effulgent Lord, by his own effulgence, manifests, maintains, and destroys entire cosmic manifestation through the material energy which is invested with the three modes of material nature. He, Lord Brahma, is the shelter of those modes of nature, Sattva Guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The word Abhivyanag Jagad Idam refer to he who creates this cosmic manifestation. The original creator is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Janmad Yasya Yataha. Lord Brahma is the secondary creator when Lord Brahma is empowered by Lord Krishna as the engineer to create the phenomenal world. He becomes a supremely powerful feature within this universe. The total material energy is created by Krishna, and later, taking advantage of all that has necessarily been created, Lord Brahma engineers the entire phenomenal universe. At the end of Lord Brahma's day, everything up to Swargaloka is inundated with water, and the next morning, when there is darkness in the universe, Brahma again brings a phenomenal manifestation into existence. Therefore, he is described here as he who manifests this universe. Trin Gunan Vrinoti. Lord Brahma takes advantage of the three modes of material nature. Prakriti, material nature, is described here as Trivrita, the source of the three material modes. Srila Madhvacharya comments in this connection that Trivrita means Prakritya. Thus, Lord Krishna is the original creator and Lord Brahma is the original engineer. Om Agyanatamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshunmalitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Broti Vakshalam Pangam Lagate Grim Yatkipatam Ham Vande Shrigaram Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, once again, the translations to these three verses. 25. Then getting up from the ground and seeing Lord Brahma before him, the head of the Daityas was overwhelmed by jubilation. With tears in his eyes, his whole body shivering, he began praying in a humble mood. with folded hands and a faltering voice to satisfy Lord Brahma. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord within this universe. At the end of each day of his life, the universe is fully covered with dense darkness by the influence of time, and then again during his next day, that self-effulgent Lord, by his own effulgence, manifests, maintains, and destroys the entire cosmic manifestation through the material energy which is invested with the three modes of material nature. He, Lord Brahma, is the shelter of those modes of nature, Sattva Gun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. So contrary to the materialistic version of creation or the cosmic manifestation, which they say is that in the beginning there was an infinitely dense particle which imploded, and this was known as the Big Bang. And they say to us, okay, so if God made everything, who made God? Oh, very smart question. Okay, so who made the Big Bang? If there was nothing in the beginning, sometimes they say that, then what would be there to cause such a Big Bang? You can't get something from nothing. But because they use big words and they're very expert at arguing, then the people in general, they tend to accept this. You know, if someone speaks in a language you don't understand and they sound very intelligent, then sometimes you might just nod your head and say, oh, okay, yes, because you don't want to sound stupid by saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand. So people are being fooled because they don't stand up and say, well, what are you talking about? Even a child can understand it. I remember at school, in the same school, they were teaching us religion about creation, and then they were talking about coming from apes. And I remember saying, well, if we came from apes, then how come there's still apes? Oh, those ones didn't change. Well, why not? Is it only some of them that changed? And then you start asking questions which are common sense for a child, and what happens? They just trying to beat you down because they don't know the answer. Or as some people say, well, maybe your father was a monkey, but mine wasn't. It does look like you came from apes, perhaps. Maybe you're right in your respect. So the cause of all causes, so even if you want to accept the Big Bang Theory as being the cause of all causes, then what caused that Big Bang, can they say? Where did those ingredients come from? If there was absolutely nothing there, then something wouldn't come from nothing. Something would have to cause that. Stands to reason. But then, of course, they become very expert at producing terms which cover their lies. So, like, for example, mentioned before, when they don't find the missing link, after some attempts at trying to find it, a lot of digging, and after a few bogus attempts of providing the so-called missing link, such as the Piltdown Man, you know, there was this hoax, but, oh, this is the missing link. One scientist wanted to become famous, so he got a few different bones and he did a little bit of filing and modelling, and he put it together as being the missing link. And after some time, it was discovered it wasn't a missing link at all. It was some doctored up skull of some other ape. And then there was Java Man. So there's a couple of instances like that. So eventually they realised we're not going to get away with that. We better come up with a new term. So they call it punctuated equilibrium. And people go, oh, that sounds very scientific. I better believe that. What does it mean? It's like, well, it was there was links here and then it just kind of jumped up. Okay. So what you were saying before was there was a missing link, but now you're saying there isn't. So you were cheating us then, but you're not cheating us now. Oh, but in the future we'll find it. And Prabhupada says, trust no future, however pleasant. So, but here from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, Hiranyakashipu is crediting Lord Brahma as being the supreme Lord within this universe. And the term there is, where is it? Abhivyanag Jagad Idam. So, he's not. Sometimes people read various scriptures, like there are 18 Puranas, 6 in the mode of goodness, 6 in the mode of passion, and 6 in the mode of ignorance. And when one reads those Puranas from the mode of ignorance, which are meant for the gradual elevation of those who are very much attached to the mode of ignorance, and Lord Shiva, he is the Guna avatar, or the deity in charge of the mode of ignorance. So when those living entities who are very much engrossed in the mode of ignorance, it's not so easy for them just to simply become a mode of goodness immediately. They're not attracted to that. So gradual elevation. So they take shelter on Lord Shiva. And for them, he is the Supreme Lord. He's known as Mahesh. Esh as an Isha, or controller, and Maha means great. So he's known as the Supreme Lord to them. But and also here we see Hiranyakashipu is referring to Lord Brahma as the Supreme Lord in terms of he is the creator. But he's also, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about how Lord Brahma is actually the secondary creator. He's not actually creator. Just like sometimes they may produce test tube babies, but they are not creating sperm and an egg. They don't just go into their lab with a bunch of chemicals and they make those items. They take something from the father and something from the mother and they put it in a test tube. And Prabhupada says, so what is the value of that? The womb is nature's test tube. They're only trying to mimic, and they're taking things which are already there. No, they never created anything. So they're just trying to do some kind of a mimic of nature's way. So, of course, the real mother and father would be the donors of the sperm and the egg, not the scientist who mixes those things in the test tube. He just wants to get some credit to push God out the way. But it's interesting how they want to take so much credit for themselves for doing some puny little thing, but they won't give credit to God for doing amazing things every day. Like sometimes people, they want to see some miracles, but there's miracles happening before our eyes every day. The fact that there's these huge planets floating in space, and this planet is just exactly the right place it needs to be in order to sustain the life which is in it, and has all the right ingredients. And this body is a miracle. There's so many miracles going on. So when Lord Brahma, first of all, entered into the universe, he knew that he had the purpose to fulfill, which was to create, because he wasn't totally in the mode of ignorance. He was there with a purpose. And he heard the word tapa, and he knew what that meant. It's not like, tapa, what does that mean? He didn't even know. If it was that ignorant, he wouldn't even know what does that mean. But he had knowledge. It's not like he was born in darkness of ignorance. So he performed tapasya, and he knew what to do. And once he was mature in his realizations, Krishna revealed himself to him, and he sung the Brahma Samhita, these hymns of Lord Brahma, beginning with Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. So immediately he glorifies Krishna, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Of all the Ishwaras, Krishna is a Parama. He is the supreme controller. Satchidananda Vigraha. His form has nothing to do with this material world. It is eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge. Anadir Adir Govinda. He is known as Govinda, and he has no other origin. Sarva Karana Karnam, and he's the cause of all causes. So right from the very start, before everything was created, then this enlightened being, Lord Brahma, he stated, Krishna is the cause of all causes. And then persons come afterwards and they say, oh no, there's no such thing, because they are so much engrossed in ignorance. And this ignorance, which was mentioned in the third canto, are the different self-delusions, which is part of the creation. Also, Lord Brahma, he was tasked with creating various delusions, so that when the living entities come into the material world, these delusions, such as thinking we're the body, thinking we're the controller and the enjoyer, I, me, and mine, then the living entity can exist in this material world. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to exist here. They would simply be... Their purpose here is to enjoy separate from the Supreme Lord. So without these delusions, they couldn't even attempt that. So this is mentioned in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that the purpose of the material world is for the living entities to try to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord. And that's because that's what they want. But in so doing, they become frustrated and turn back to the Supreme Lord. So the Lord allows the living entity to run around in the playground of the material world through many different species, being a demigod, being a Yamaduta, being an insect, being a whale, being a plant, being a snail, and so many things they try to enjoy, or they get their punishment for misuse of freedom. Just like you can hear, there's one morning walk, Srila Prabhupada, we mentioned this before, but we haven't mentioned the last part. He says, so the dog comes running up to the gate, and Prabhupada stops the morning walk, and he turns round, and then the dog runs away again. He's barking all the time, saying, I'm running away. Although I'm running away, I'm not afraid of you. Prabhupada mimics the mentality of the dog. And then, almost under his breath, he says, you have gotten your punishment. So you can see the knowledge. Prabhupada sees the spirit soul. The spirit soul is in the dog body because it's a punishment for misuse of freedom. Human form of life gives awards the most freedom. And if we use that properly, we get more freedom. We get entrance to the spiritual world. Or if people are materially motivated, they may get elevation to the higher planetary systems. But the whole material world is known as Mrityu Loka, or the place of repeated birth and death. So even for the devotees, they understand, yeah, it might be very nice going to the planets of the demigods. We read about this in the fifth canto, where there's these huge big mango trees, and when the mangoes crash down and form rivers of mango on the banks, it becomes gold, and the aroma of the trees and the flowers and the different living entities can be smelt for miles around. So the enjoyment there is just intoxicating, so much so that we forget about our real nature. There's so much enjoyment we forget about that we're not this body, we're spirit soul. And although the lifespan may be very, very long, because someone is so enamored and intoxicated by this enjoyment that they forget, and their life comes to an end, and then they realize, oh no, I've just lived for hundreds of thousands of years and haven't made any progress in spiritual life. And then we're going back down to the material world again, or the earthly planet, where we get a human form, and again we get a chance. And then again, we're going to go back up and come back down, up and down. And maybe we do some wrong things and we have to go down further. So it's taking a big risk. So really, a devotee doesn't want to take any risk. They want to get out of this material world. And I was just reading recently, Prabhupada says, if we have one tinge of material desire, we cannot enter into the spiritual world. So this is, when I read that, I thought, well, I'm certainly not qualified. Shikodi time, Apishachiki time. The fact that we hear this means that, okay, now we know what we have to do. We have to be free from all tinge of material desire. This is what it takes. Because if we want to enjoy the material world, we have to stay here, because that type of enjoyment is not available in the spiritual world. So it would be incongruous, it would be incompatible. It's like saying, I want to go to London, but I got on the bus to Aberdeen. You're just not going to get to London. You're going the wrong direction. So this self-realization means that we have to, by hearing these remarks or these instructions from the spiritual master, then we realize, I'm not as advanced as I like to think I am. I do have material desires, and I have to clear that away. I have to replace those material desires. I have to work at simply becoming a servant and being enthusiastic to devotional service. This is what I have to come to. And even when we're not enthusiastic, then what is the message we're being given in Bhagavad Gita? Arjuna wasn't enthusiastic. If you read chapter 2, verse 7, Karpanya dosho pahata swabhava prachami tvam dharma samudacheta yashri shanishitam brihitan me shishashtaham sharimam tvam papanam. Now I'm confused about my duty and have lost all composure due to manly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I'm a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Now I'm your disciple, a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So to begin with, he wasn't so enthusiastic. He was very despondent. He had lost heart. But Krishna gives him heart again. He says, give up such petty weakness and arise, O chastiser of the enemy. So he's reminding him that you're better than you think you are. And you can conquer over this. And this message is for us also, that we are meant for victory. We're not meant to be defeated by the modes of material nature. And when we take the message of Krishna to heart and we keep on applying it, we do our best to apply it. And Krishna sees us struggling and he helps us. As long as we're trying to take shelter, it's like when the personality of Kali was discovered by Maharaj Parikshit, and he was beating on the legs of the bull of Dharma. And he'd already beaten down 3 legs, and 1 leg was left. Which one was that? Truth. And that was a bit shaky. You can just imagine a bull trying to stand on 1 leg. So you see, even in Kali Yuga, they say that truth is only virtue still existing, but sometimes it's hard to see that. But when the personality of Kali was discovered by Maharaj Parikshit, what was Maharaj Parikshit's first action? What was he about to do? He took out his sword, right, and he was going to slay him. And then Kali took shelter for mercy. And this is the duty of the Kshatriya, that if someone takes shelter, then they have to give that shelter. They can't say, oh, forget it. There has to be some, or even if they may give them shelter, but there may be some punishment, like Ashwatthama. He was punished. A fate worse than death was to have his the jewel cut from his head, from his hair. Or who was that other one? Rukma, right? Rukma, he thought he was a big shot, but they cut off half of his moustache and beard, wasn't it? So they made him look ridiculous. So that was actually, for someone of his caliber, like a Kshatriya, to go around in public like that was humiliating for him. So that kind of punishment, he'd have preferred to have died. But the... So when the living entity takes shelter in Krishna, then he's duty bound. As they surrender, I reward accordingly. So if we surrender a little, but we expect a lot back in return, then we're going to be disappointed. If we want everything, we want fully Krishna to be, if we want to fully be in that relationship where we see Krishna as our eternal friend, well-wisher, his supreme enjoyer, and to give us full protection, then we have to take full surrender, full shelter. So because we're accustomed to taking shelter in the material world, then it takes some time before we learn to actually let go. We're still holding on to things thinking this is giving me shelter, but Krishna is saying, let go, you're suffering. I'm telling you, let go, you'll be okay. And we're saying, yeah, but no. Yeah, but no, but 3 bags full, but sometimes people use this in argument. They don't outrightly want to just agree with you. So they say, in the argument, they say, yes, but. So yes, but means no. No, if anyone says that, yes, but, it means basically that they're saying yes, but they're disagreeing with you because but means they're going to come up with some counter thing. You can use it yourself as well to stall people or in a kind of diplomatic way. Like Srila Prabhupada, we used various things in the argument. Someone would come up with something which was maybe beside the point. He says, yes, that is another thing, but this is my point. So just as karma has primary and or remote and secondary causes. So, for example, someone may walk outside the temple and slip on a banana peel that someone had dropped, and they fall, and they cut their knee or something like that. So the primary cause may be seen as being the person who threw that banana peel there. And so that would be like the initial cause. You maybe see the immediate cause, which is the secondary cause. But the remote cause is karma. It was us who was there when that banana peel was there at that exact point in time. And it wasn't someone else. As the Scots bard, Rabbi Byrne says, if it's for you, it'll no go past you. So similarly, we see that Lord Brahma and so many other people may create things, just like sometimes you see, for example, Trump. He's very proud that he's got Trump Tower. You know, he's the supreme creator of Trump Tower. But where did they get all the ingredients from? Or we have anything we try to manifest, where do we get it from? We get it from the earth. Maybe an artist is very proud of the nice pottery they make, but they got it from the earth. No, they didn't create it. They found it. It was already there. It was there before they were even thought of. It was there before their great-granddad was there. So when we're going through various things, happiness and distress, then we should remember that the good and the bad is simply there from previous. I remember one devotee was quite envious that I had, I think it was 2 or 3 jackets I had, and he had one. And living in the Brahmachari ashram, and of course, we're all very simple. But the reason I had them is because people gave them to me. And he was kind of upset. I says, well, you can have one as well. We can both have 2. He says, but the fact is, it's my karma. That's why they came. I never went out to seek to get extra 2 jackets. So if we're envious of what someone else has, what does it do for us? It just makes us dissatisfied, doesn't it? Think, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I had that lovely house, lovely car, or nice situation like that. We create dissatisfaction within ourselves rather than just seeing, what do we have? What's Krishna given us? Isn't that enough to serve? We have such great facility. We have everything we need. Sometimes we forget that because we take our mind off of that and we look for that which we don't have. So it's interesting here that Hiranyakashipu is actually seen here as being as praying in a humble mood. Sounds very different from the Hiranyakashipu we hear when he's trying to kill Prahlad Maharaj. He's not very humble there, is it? So what do we think happened here? How did he go from that humble mood to becoming a real demon? Anybody? Anybody experienced that themselves? That sometimes they've actually been quite humble, and somewhere down the road they don't feel very humble at all. What happened along the way?
You can become somewhat proud by your supposed power or some ability you have, and therefore you think that you don't actually need to become dependent upon other people. Whereas this point, Hiranyakashipu, he realizes he's dependent upon the benedictions of Lord Brahma. But then later you can imagine when he feels that he's sort of immortal, etc., he's no longer in that position of dependence.
Mm-hmm. So his motivation in the first place, it wasn't a pure motivation, was it? It's like sometimes people can be very humble when they want something, and then if you give it to them, sometimes they'll use that against you because their motivation wasn't so good in the first place. Like that demon who got the benediction from Lord Shiva, what was his name? Was it Bhaumasura? I can't remember who it was. But anyway, he was trying to please Lord Shiva, but once he got the benediction, they wanted to test out his benediction that whoever's head he touched would explode into 1,000 pieces. He wanted to test it in Lord Shiva. So sometimes this is a situation like in the material world. Well, there's that example of Prabhupada went to Dai Nippon in Japan for the printing of books. They were discussing the printing, and the boss left the room, and Prabhupada asked the young understudy, he says, "What's your ambition?" And he took his business card and he placed it on top of the boss's business card, demonstrating that he wanted to be the top dog. So he's all his humble service assisting attitude was simply so that he could be the boss, so that he would be served. Yeah, so this is the case, like you were saying, that he got the benediction that he would remain eternal. And when he got that, he became very proud of his powerful position. And of course, his brother was killed, so he became the sworn enemy of Lord Vishnu, and he wanted to kill Vishnu. He hated anything to do with Lord Vishnu. But what he didn't know was Narayana Parayana, that Lord Narayana Paro Vyaktat is, Lord Narayana is transcendental to the creation. He existed before the creation, he'll exist after, and he maintains everything. So, of course, these are all the pastimes of the Lord, but many lessons to be learned through this. Any questions or comments? I talk to you then, Pancho.
One was just a comment, was that Kali forgave, Parikshit forgave Kali and facilitated him, but not without intelligent discretion. He contained him. He says, "Okay, I won't kill you, but at the same time, I know what you're going to do. So I'm going to put you into a situation where you're contained, so that you can only do limited damage."
And yeah, so where did he put him? He said, "These places you can reside," which is where gold is. and where the regulated principles are being broken. So this is where Kali resides. So if you don't want to be a Kali Chela, then we have to avoid these areas where Kali resides.
You're saying we shouldn't be envious of another's material position, but is there any scope for being envious of like the spiritual position of someone else? Like, can we? Because we should. I feel we shouldn't be so much satisfied, like with our. We should always be hankering for more.
Yeah, maybe not so much envious, but rather we can be. What would be the word? Inspired and admiring. We can admire. So, because Hari Sawyer Prabhu asked him this question about envy, and he said he asked the same question of Prabhupada. No, everything can be used in Krishna's service. What about envy? He says no, envy must be given up. He says that cannot be used in Krishna's service. That has to be given up. Because that's considered to be the origin of us coming into the material world. So I don't know if anyone has heard anything contrary to that, but that's seems to be the rule of thumb on this one, that envy has to be given up. Because if we understand, envy means I want what that person has and I want them not to have it. So that's not the mood of a devotee. Jealousy may be that I want that as well. So, which is not quite the same thing. It means we don't want to take that away from someone else. If someone's envious of you, not only do they want what you have, but they want you not to have it. They want to see you in a less favorable position.
The head getting split up. It was Rikasura was the one who was cutting the skin off, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But it does also say actually that Bhaumasura was trying to do it. So I don't know what that's.
Was it Vrikasura that was cutting the skin off, or was it Bhaumasura? Vrikasura.
Rikasura, yeah.
Yeah, so who's Bhaumasura then? That's Banasura.
Wasn't Bhaumasura the one that appeared naked? And his mother.
No. This is what happens when you get old. You know so much, but you forget it.
Yeah, they say that when you get old, all you've got left is memories, and most of them you've forgotten.
That's why, actually, in Kali Yuga, even before you get old, memory is a problem. Prabhupada says memory in Kali Yuga means pen and paper, or phone or tablet or something. We need some kind of aid for our memory. Yes, Pip, final question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for a nice class. I had a question regarding this point that Panchatattva Prabhu was talking about, like we're not to be envious of other people on a material or any platform. We're not to be envious of people, and we can maybe kind of understand that on an intellectual level, but then like emotionally and mentally, we still go through that and we still feel that. So how can we make that our reality where we're not envious of others?
So essentially, the principle of that is, if we're envious of Krishna, then the cure for the envy is to serve. Yeah. So if we're envious of someone, if it's a devotee, then the cure for that is to do some service for them. But you have to understand it. Is it envy? Is that what your problem is with them? And then we may find that the problem wasn't them at all, it was just us and our envy. Sometimes we become a fault finder of someone simply because we're envious of them. Or we see something in them which reminds reminds us of something unsavory in ourselves, which we don't want to look at. Yeah, generally, the cure for envy is to do some service, but if you're envious of some materialistic person, then don't go and serve them. Just try to take your mind off it and forget about them and serve Krishna anyway. Anyone would like to add anything to that? It's an indirect form of glorification.
Yeah. So if you're envious because somebody can sing really sweetly and you'd like to be able to sing sweetly as well, and then you're envious of them, then if you take it to its root, its core, the core problem is just that you would like to be able to do that also. And in fact, came up with a question the other day as well about material desires. How can you approach Krishna with material desires? But Krishna doesn't see them as material desires. He sees that you have a core desire to want to please him, but you don't realize it. You get all mixed up. Gets all mixed up. So in the same way, you become envious of somebody. So because they can sing, like in the forest, there was a centipede that could do this really funky dance, and the frog was envious, but because all the forest animals used to come and see him dance, but he knew that if he squashed him or swallowed him, all the animals would think that was a really bad show. So he said to the centipede, "When you're dancing with your 754th foot that way, what do you do with the 755th?" So when the centipede was dancing, he got all mixed up because he was thinking about what he was doing, you know? And then he couldn't dance anymore. So the frog was then happy because he'd disempowered him to do what he could do, you know. He dragged him down so then he could be happy. But that's like a really messed up way of doing it. The better way would be to learn from the centipede some quality from him, you know, and then you'd be satisfied. So it's because you're not really aligning with your own core values, what it is you really want, you know. And then you won't be satisfied with that. You won't be happy with that until you sort yourself out, you know.
Yeah, it's a good point. And the last thing the envious mind wants to do to someone is to glorify them. And so therefore, Lord Chaitanya says, just try to see the good in others. So even if someone has all faults according to our mind, if we try to see some good in them, then it'll ease up the harsh envy which is within us. So even if somebody is of bad character, bad behavior, not good association, you can still keep that distance, but you can still try to see some good in them. Sometimes you'll see Prabhupada, he'll say some good thing about some person who's generally seen as a demoniac person, but it's not because Prabhupada subscribes to some kind of conspiracy theories, it's because he sees the spirit soul everywhere and he sees good even in the most demoniac, because he understands beneath this is a pure spirit soul servant of Krishna. There's one saying that nobody is as good as they think they are, and nobody's as bad as they think they are. So everybody's got some good and bad. And even some people who are like really demoniac, they've got their friends who see some good in them, don't they? And they've got loyalty toward each other, stuff like that. So like Hokshibur was saying that everything is misplaced, misdirected. If we learn how to direct it in the proper way as devotees towards Krishna, Krishna's devotees, then that is the cure. Yes.
Have patience and introspect. Find faults in yourself. Know that others cannot harm you.
Thank you. That's a good note to finish on. Iskon Guru Vrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Karantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki.